Hi class, this is going to be a quick overview of Unit 1 as well as just some information we covered in class on our first day. Hopefully we got to all of it. If not, this will be a great way for us to catch up. So quick reminders and a little follow-up with regards to grading. When it comes to our grading, our test, major unit test, projects, those kind of things are 50% of your grade. So that is a big chunk, but there are lots of opportunities for you to have the summative grade put in. With regards to labs and quizzes, those would be both formal and informal labs that we do in class. Those, as well as whether they be pop quizzes or announced quizzes that occur in between the summative exams, those would be in this category. Formative are going to be specific activities that we do that don't necessarily fall into the lab or the quizzes category. There's not as many formative. This would be things like if I take up a specific homework assignment. Again, that's not a lab or a quiz, those kind of things. And then the on-time category is simply for me to be able to check to make sure you're doing your satellite work at home. And that'll basically consist of me going around and making sure that you have your notes that you did at home, as well as any of the questions that had to be answered and that kind of stuff. So we try to do that really quickly at the beginning of each class. I won't do it every day, but you never know when I'm going to. So having that is always very important for you to make sure that you get that 5% easy A, so to speak, for that category. We also talked about note-taking. This is probably one of the biggest areas that students struggle with. Either they don't know how to take notes, or they take too many notes or too few notes. I've always been more of the, you can usually take too much than you can too little. Because typically if you're trying to actually take notes, you can sometimes be bogged down in the parts that really don't matter instead of focusing on the key and core ideas. So we're going to be using this year several different note-taking methods that will hopefully help you to better figure out how to take notes, as well as just give you better overall success in the note-taking category, so that the summative grades stay where you would really like them to be, which is high, right? So we're going to be looking at Cornell notes and scroll note taking for both the textbook readings and our in-class lectures. And then we'll be looking at the PP123 note taking guide for videos. We're going to look real quickly at what those actually look like. With regards to Cornell notes, you can use your own notebook paper and divide this out, or I do have posted a sheet that you can print out as many copies of it as you want and actually use that as your note-taking sheet. It's totally up to you, whatever floats your boat. But we are going to be using a very specific way. If you've had classes at Johnson Ferry before, some of the science classes have used this in the past. But basically, you're dividing your page into multiple areas. There is kind of a heading that goes with that that shows what it is that you're taking notes on, where they came from in the pages, and that kind of stuff, as well as anything that, if it's a lecture, you would have that information at the top, when it was taken, all that kind of stuff. But then you really separate it into three key areas, and that is to the left, to the right, and at the bottom. And on the left-hand side, you have a main idea that would be kind of like if we were talking about let's say Vesper. You're like, oh my goodness, I don't know what that means. Don't worry, you will a long time. In a few weeks from now, or maybe a couple months. But if that was our main topic, then you would have the main idea of what Vesper is. And then your key questions are going to be after you take your notes. What is it that you didn't quite understand, whether it was in class or in the notebook or in your textbook? Then, and especially good to use in class as the Cornell notes, is that you can put in keywords and ideas, making sure that you're only highlighting the most important things. You never want to write down everything I try to say, because number one, you're not going to be able to get it all down, and number two, some of it might not be critical, but is just stuff to try and help you remember something. So you'll find that not writing every word is probably going to save your hand and save your brain too, and trying to recall everything that I said. If you can get those keywords, those key ideas down, oftentimes as you go back and review the notes, you'll go, oh yeah, she was talking about ABC with regards to that. Anything that's repeated or stressed, of course, that is always a good idea to write that down. Any of you that go to Johnson Ferry as your church, Bryant is always saying, listen, are you listening? Anytime there's some kind of, hey, you need to really make sure you have this, or it's a repeated fact, that's a pretty good indication you need to really know that, and it should be written down. Some other ideas, just stuff from the textbooks or stories. Oftentimes, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and in this case, a diagram is also serving in that function. Then, of course, formulas. Anytime that we have formulas that you need to memorize or just know for usage later on, having those written down in your notes will definitely help. Once the notes are done, you go back and you figure out any key questions that you didn't understand, things that you want to know more information about. You can either use your textbook or you can email me to find out the answers to those questions. Your classmates also are a good resource for that. And then in your own words at the very bottom, and this is the part that really, for me, I think is the essence of why Cornell Notes work, is because you're going back and summarizing. So in 3 to 4 sentences, you're going to summarize all that stuff that is in your notes, realizing, of course, you might have more than one page of notes, but your summary is just overall of what it was, what main idea, facts you need to know for that topic. And so Cornell Notes will be a great way for you to learn the information, but it's also a quick way for me to assess, because I can look at your summary and see if there's any misconceptions or if there's things that are missing within that core or main idea. Another way to look at note-taking is called the scroll method. This is especially good for your textbook. Look at the survey or look at the material that's going to be read. So if it tells you you've got 10 pages to read, just basically kind of do a quick glance at, look to see how many main topics there are. Is it one main section or is it multiple sections? What is it overall that you're going to be reading about? Then look at those main titles or sections and try to connect any of the ideas that go together. Those bold topic segments are usually a good place to start with in connecting those ideas. Then you actually go back and read the material. It's basically taking it of the idea. You're going to go in airplane mode. You're going to start out high. You're going to look at all the main ideas, and then you're going to begin to have a descent to where you can land and hopefully understand all the material. So you read it, you outline or make some very quick notes about that, and then look to fill in all the information, making sure there's not any gaps that you're missing from that outline. And that's just a great way for you to make sure when you're reading the material, number one, you kind of get multiple glances at it, because as you survey, you're looking at the broad perspective of what it is you're reading. You go back and look at the big picture ideas, so that gives you a secondary glance, so to speak, at the material, and then you actually get to the nitty-gritty of reading it. Yes, I know this takes time, and I understand that having to do this multiple times can be rather aggravating, but it is what it is. And you're expected on those satellite days to spend, an hour and a half, because that's the time I have you in class, an hour and a half on chemistry each day that you're at home. Some days you will not spend an hour and a half. Some days you will feel like you're spending all day, just because of the way the material goes. In talking about that, I think it is a good reminder, as I've told you in class, this is not the subject that you want to decide, okay, I've got Wednesday, Thursday, satellite days. On Wednesdays, I'm going to do science and English, and on Thursdays, I'm going to do math and social studies. Science is not, do you hear me repeating that? That means it's important. It is not the class that you want to try and combine everything that I'm giving you into a 3-hour block of time. Not only that, you need time to process. So the things that I'm giving you, like say on that Wednesday, need to have some time to sit in your brain, so that on Thursday, when you're either introducing new stuff or going over that, you get another chance to really master that material. So I can't stress enough that this is not the class to do all of your work in one day for the week. I've had some students do it successfully, but many of them felt the strain of trying to do that, to learn a lot of material in one day, where you could break it apart and learn chunks in 2 days. And that's how I designed the class, for you to have work every day on those satellite days. Okay, enough of that spiel. The last part is what we call the PP 1, 2, 3. And no, it's not my 3-year-old having to go out on the bushes, although he does like to do that. But it's talking really about the videos. So you're going to have videos just like this one that either I do or that I've pulled from YouTube from various instructors of chemistry that explain the information. So you're really, again, in that flipped classroom environment where when you see me, we're there to analyze, make sure there's no deficiencies or misunderstandings with the content that's being presented to you at home, or we're doing labs, or we're taking tests, trying to make sure that we have all that material covered. So in seeing the videos, you're going to see there's a lot of them. It's really important to not try to do it all at one time. Most of the videos are anywhere from 10 to 20 minutes at most. And a great strategy, and one that I've told many students, is this PP 1, 2, 3. And the first P is just, okay, get ready to take notes. Well, that's an obvious part of it. If you're going to watch something, you need to be ready to learn from it. Play the tape or the video in small sections. It's not always important to listen to the whole video. You might get to a part and be like, whoa, that was a lot of information. And that might be even 2 or 3 minutes in. But when you're doing these small sections, you can do one of 2 ways. And the first idea is to do the 1, 2, 3 part, which is first of all, the first listen. And honestly, that is just you sitting in front of it like you're watching a movie or anything else, and sitting and just listening. Then the second listen is where you actually go in and do something active, which is taking the notes. And this is really where that playing the tape in small sections or the video in small sections comes into play. Taking notes, the great part of videos is you can stop them. You can pause them to where you can make sure that you're getting all the points down that you need to. And then the third listen is for you to go back and review. Was there something that you missed? Was there something that you wrote down incorrectly? Make sure that your notes match up to what the video is telling you. And by listening to it 3 times, yes, I realize that if it's a 20-minute video, you've just spent an hour doing all that. Again, I know that that's not the most fun way to do things. Some of the stuff will not be as tedious, and you might not need to do 3 listens. You might be able to do 2. So you might even be able to do 1. But on the stuff that's really difficult, or the stuff that you're just not getting, taking that extra time to do 3 screenings of the video really can help. So those are some of the things that we talked about in class. And I'm sure we did more, but those are the ones I'm going to go with for now. With regards to the major topics for overview for Unit 1, we have those simple basic things like lab safety. Don't be silly in the lab. Make sure you have closed-toed shoes on so that if a glass were to fall on your foot, it would not cut your toe off. Make sure that you have something to pull your hair back if you have long hair. Make sure that you're always wearing your goggles. The last thing you want is to have to put your eyes in the eye wash station for 5 minutes to wash them out. Those kind of lab safety things. And then the lab equipment, you will find this week you'll have a worksheet that shows you all the different lab equipment that we have, as well as it goes through their functions. So what is it that those things do? We also have several components of using measurements. This is looking at scientifically notating numbers, determining the number of significant figures of a number, as well as calculating density. So there are some formulas. There's also some basic guidelines and rules to help you know how to measure as well as calculate with regards to scientific notation. We will do some of that at home and some of that in class. There's also just the understanding of what the scientific method is. You've seen this multiple times, so it's not something we really pay a lot of attention to, but just a cursory reminder. And then there's also some stuff on graphing to make sure that we remember independent and dependent variables, that we always title our graphs, that we always label things. And then the last, which really starts our chemistry study, is the study of matter. And so how to classify matter, what the properties of matter is and are, and then how does matter change, both physically and chemically. So you're going to be taking a look at that over the next couple of weeks, and then we will be testing over all that information, yeah, I think 2 or 3 weeks. So just an easy way to step into chemistry, but it is stuff that will be there. Additionally, just a reminder, those elements do have to be memorized, the flashcards that you made, and then your projects are also, of course, hopefully turned in by now. So hopefully you were able to pull some things from your summer reading that were of some interest. I know we didn't get to everybody's, or get a full detail of everybody's books this summer. But I think that from what we talked about, some of you have more fun than others, and isn't that always the case? But we will be looking at those books in the weeks to come in various different ways. I'll reference them, especially if you had a certain book, then you're gonna be expected to still remember it a little bit, at least to the point that you can discuss in class whatever topic it is that we're going over. So hopefully that gives you a basic overview as well as a look at what we discussed day 1, and I look forward to diving into chemistry with you. Until next time.